IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand for a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account. Visit itpro.tv/securityweekly and use the code SW30. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Logarithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul Security Weekly. This is our security news for this week. I'm here to tell you not just about AnyCon. Actually, I am here to tell you about AnyCon, of course, the first hacker conference of its kind in Albany, New York. The event will take place June 16th, 17th, in the Albany Convention Center. Capture the Flag competition, hardware hacking village, ping pong tournament, several tracks available, family-friendly environment. Dave Kennedy will be delivering the keynote. Security Weekly's own Doug White will be there giving out Security Weekly t-shirts, hacker movie-themed glassware. You can go to anycon.info/tickets, use the discount code Paul, and get 25% off.
And Jeff Mann will be speaking.
Jeff Mann will be speaking at AnyCon as well. Doug and team, I think Sam and one of the production crew, Mark, Riley, or Tyler, one of the three will be there. I'm not sure which. Sam knows. But also, they will have a small selection of challenge coins to give to very special people. We talked about Security Weekly Challenge Coin, I think, last week, the week before. Also, I did want to also mention that in updating our websites, visit our websites. We've adjusted a lot of the content. Please go there, check it out. You can subscribe to all of our shows on the network, which now includes Enterprise Security Weekly, Startup Security Weekly, Tradecraft Security Weekly, Secure Digital Life, this show. Am I forgetting any? Did I forget one?
Stogie Geeks.
Stogie Geeks.
Hack Naked News.
Tradecraft. Hack Naked News. That's the one I was missing. Hack Naked News. There's an entire network of shows. You can subscribe to them individually.
Yep. So
many of the shows are in the main.
For me, one I didn't know about, which is crazy, Tradecraft Security Weekly.
Yeah, I didn't really know about it either until Bo was like, "Hey, I want to start doing stuff," and I'm like, "All right." He's like, "I want to call it Tradecraft Security Weekly." I'm like, "All right, let's do it."
So what's it about?
So it's basically tech segments from Bo, mini tech segments on how to do
just
stuff.
From Bo. Does he have guests come on?
No, it's just him talking about like straight up technical segments.
I will say, knowing our model, how that's gone, he's going to run out of tech segments. So.
We'll see how Bo does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful
too. We were and we did really well for a long time.
Yes, but it is hard to keep up a regular stamina, as it were.
Yes. They make a pill for that, right, Jeff?
That's right. They make
right.
Because Jeff's the old curmudgeon on the.
More than 4 hours, you have to contact your doctor.
That's right.
Yeah, Jeff's the curmudgeon on the show now.
John has also pledged to do like an on the road, like just John random security thoughts, knowledge, news kind of show as well.
Interesting.
And a lot of these will start out as like YouTube only kind of things that you can get on our YouTube channel. And we're adding a technical segment to Enterprise Security Weekly.
Nice.
I don't want to call it Enterprise Defender. That's kind of how I'm referencing it now. Obviously, there's a SANS class on Enterprise Defender. But it'll focus on
Enterprise Blue Team.
Yeah, Enterprise Blue Team. Exactly.
You've got to. We love Bo, right? He's dedicated to making some content to improve tradecraft, and that's cool, right? I mean, I think that'll flourish for a period of time, and And like you said, there is sort of a limit.
Who's that talking? I don't recognize him.
What? Oh, what are you talking about?
Why do you have sunglasses?
Yeah, he's got his Ray Charles glasses on.
Well, I decided that for security news that it was time to go incognito this evening, right? Because, security news is, well, not so fun sometimes.
What?
And
What?
Get out. Get out.
What?
You're going to start using Emacs next. Get out.
Oh, no. I'm not going to use Emacs. I'm just having problems seeing. No, it's the patriotic Russian hacker story that's bothering.
Oh, gotcha.
But,
So let's talk about the patriotic Russian hackers.
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to talk about the patriotic Russian hackers?
I do.
Hackers. Do you want me to talk about it?
I do. I want you to talk about it.
Okay. Well, apparently Vladimir Putin was interviewed in press today and made several comments in St. Petersburg about how his government is not involved in hacking per se, and I paraphrase, but apparently there's patriotic Russian hackers that just might be highly motivated to engage in hacking activities against other, nations. But it's not his government. So that's the gist of the story.
Well, if that's not the biggest excuse for nation-state hacking, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
It sounds like complete horseshit to me. I mean, that was my read.
It's a lot of hand-waving and Jedi mind tricks. It's patriotic Russian hackers.
Yeah. They're independent.
To quote, of course, it's translated, if they are patriotically minded, they start making their contributions, which are right from their point of view, to the fight against those who say bad things about Russia. So, okay. There it is.
So it's open season.
Yeah. So that was the patriotic hacking story. And on a side note, Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox News, I think was over to NBC and took up the mantle for that particular interview, or, a number of interviews, I believe.
Yeah, it was her debut.
Yeah.
First thing she gets to do on the new network is go talk to Putin.
Interesting.
So I guess congratulations.
I saw that on the news. I saw that on the news this morning that she's like, they've agreed to let me speak to Putin for an hour. I'm like, oh,
it's interesting.
Yeah. So,
okay. Well, that's really all there is to say about the patriotism. Of Russian hackers, but
it's kind of. We were talking earlier about paying attention to headlines versus like what's actually going on, and I think likely 100% of what the headlines are reporting on cyber attacks and the U.S. and Russia is really just that. It's just headlines.
Yep. Now that said, there's also some potential things that we need to be aware of with all of those. And I saw a thread on the SANS mailing list that, like, hey, we have a NOC, and we put all this stuff on the NOC TVs, and we want some news, and we want some headlines, but we want something that's not all of this political crap. And it was difficult from my opinion, it was difficult, and I think even still, I think we need to be mindful of the political crap that gets out there, because the political crap has some influence of how people behave, regardless of whether or not there's some polarizing thing to that politically, but it changes the way people think, and it affects the way other nations and other hacking groups think, and we need to be conscious of those, quote, crap or fake news, whichever you want to call it, headlines, and have some
in the old
understanding of
days,
those.
we used to call it propaganda.
Yeah, exactly, and folks react to propaganda, including hacking groups. So I think we need to be cognizant of all of those.
Exactly.
Anyone want to speculate who the shadow brokers are?
Well, that's an interesting one. So that's the second story. Maybe the third story in my list, that the shadow brokers have opened up a subscription service.
They have
now, where you can buy your 0 days for the small price of $21,000, I believe it was.
And they're switching to some new currency. What was the currency?
Yeah, Ethereum, Zcash, and it might have been Zcash.
Zcash, yes.
Interesting. That's all I can say. I don't want to speculate too much, but it would seem that to me, and my gut instinct is that these people might not be U.S. based, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the subscription service is for an individual, a lot of money. For a nation state, not a lot of money. So clearly their market is, nation states, probably masquerading as an individual. But the interesting part is, you don't know what you're buying. Basically, you subscribe, and when they come out with a bunch of exploits, that's what you get. You don't really know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of like
Did
those...
Did you see the crowdfunding push they were doing, where they were trying to get a bunch of people to chip in, like a Kickstarter or something like that?
And they pulled it.
And I guess that all collapsed.
Yeah, it pulled it. So the big one for that, Don, was really interesting.
So people said, let's subscribe, but let's crowdfund.
Yeah, there was a group that out there that said, hey, let's crowdfund a subscription. And it's very clear, I don't even need to call my lawyer to know that receiving stolen property, let alone contributing to pay for stolen property, is illegal. Yeah. So they pulled
the
that.
idea of a neck-bearded hipster.
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting that in one of the articles I read, this was on Ars Technica, that there was an individual that was saying that it presented an ethical dilemma for them as a security firm, because it was attractive to and I paraphrase, but seemingly attractive to go after this kind of stuff because, having 0 days in hand is certainly a competitive advantage.
Sure.
It's my supposition.
Yeah, but how long would those be 0 days for?
Yeah, exactly. How long are they going to last?
Until that crowdfunded group dropped them, right?
Yeah, or anyone. You don't even. All you have to do is tell the vendor, and then it's any X amount of time before the vendor, depending on who the vendor is and how motivated they are to fix it. Conceivably, they're only going to be 0 days for so long.
Yep, agreed.
I'm sort of thinking that some sort of prosecution is not too far behind this, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I have to imagine that intelligence agencies are feverishly looking for who the shadow brokers are.
So
unless it is an intelligence agency
themselves. So speaking of shadow brokers,
could be some motivated Russians.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be any nation's intelligence agency.
So speaking of shadow brokers, Paul, I'm sure you saw, and I probably didn't send it to the right people because I'm an idiot, but I sent the request in to talk about the Vault 7 dump.
Yep.
And there was some Swift stuff there that we've been talking a lot about the Vault 7 dump and all of the 0 days that came out of that. Mm-hmm. But the Swift portion has been largely overlooked because I don't think a lot of people understand what that really means.
Correct.
And I know a guy that really understands what that Swift stuff means and has done lots of analysis of the dump from all of the Swift stuff and has some very interesting theories about what that could potentially mean. One, what the hell is the Swift stuff all about? And two, what did it do?
It's an easy, if you have access to that, an easy way to get money, conceivably.
Right, but what did it do and what was the intent? Potentially, what did it do and what was the intent? And what are some of the things that we can glean from some of that Swift data? And he's got some really, really interesting theories about that.
Do we get to know what those are? Or?
Oh, yeah, he'll tell you.
Oh
yeah.
On the show? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is kind of timely and interesting, and one of those things that Swift, that not a lot of people have been talking about the Swift portion. They've all, as security professionals, we've been talking about what that means from a 0 day perspective, but what did the Swift thing really mean from a larger, potentially political perspective and from a technology perspective for Swift?
Yeah,
potentially much more impactful, I think.
Well, in the reason, one of the larger reasons I think is for that is because once that transfer happens on the SWIFT network, it's done. It's not like a credit card where there's reimbursements that happen. Like
SWIFT is done.
It's done.
Yeah,
it's
but
done.
even
Money's gone.
But even worse, think about the SWIFT data and what is contained in that SWIFT data, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to
steal the thunder.
Yeah, I don't want to steal the thunder of the person that's been doing the analysis of this stuff, and he's got some really interesting thoughts about some of this stuff. So we'll leave it at that.
So Bruce and I wrote an article about who the. I mean, it's interesting. He mentioned SWIFT in here as well, Larry, as whose they could be. Basically, says it leaves a nation state.
Mm-hmm.
North Korea is suspected of being behind WannaCry.
Who did he specify nation state on SWIFT?
On SWIFT,
did he specify which nation state, or did he just say nation state?
The SWIFT documents are records of an NSA operation, and the other posted files demonstrate that NSA is hoarding vulnerabilities for attack rather than helping them fix and improve all of our security.
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
Prove it.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is proof in this whole, the whole thing. Anyway,
prove it.
The ICS SCADA systems for penetration testers, a typical engagement. I thought this was interesting because it reads more like an audit than a hands-on penetration test.
Well,
and there's good reason for that.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said there's a good reason for that.
So early on in my pen testing days, I was approached by a company that said, we've got this, it was like, a company through another company, and they were like, we got this company, it's a power plant, and good mutual friends of ours thought I was crazy for saying no, but I was like, no, I'm not doing this. They're like, we want you to pen test a power plant. And I'm like, so there's no like dev environment or anything? They're like, no, this is
the live shit.
Basically a Linux system connected to like live stuff, and we want you to pen test it. And I was like, nope. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, I'm not. I knew that the potential for bad things was really bad, that I could be responsible for a mass scale power outage. I knew that I didn't have the legal backing to be in that particular situation, given the way the deal was structured, that I would likely be the scapegoat. And nor did I have knowledge at that time on how to test a power plant without causing bad things to happen.
That said, I know you and I have tested a power plant.
Yes.
But it was the business portion.
Correct. It wasn't
not interacting with the SCADA quote portion.
They were very clear that this was connected to a live power plant. And I was like, nope.
I've tested stuff that's actually connected to live controlling entities.
Same here.
And without naming any names, the reports that it's an abysmal situation are absolutely true. These are very much unpatched early systems that are locked in, and we've said this before on the show. They're locked into certain releases because of what the vendors have laid down on them or whatever reasons, and the situation is frighteningly scary. There's no other way.
Well, don't forget, this test I was approached on was probably, it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the level of both the sensitivity of the systems, which might remain the same in the past 10 plus years.
I was going to say, nothing's probably changed.
But the tools, the tools that we have today, I think, are much better, and the tuning of those tools is much better than they were over 10 years ago. Because I knew walking into an enterprise network or even a smaller network, if I were to run Nmap, for example, I would crash shit all day long.
Yep.
Now, you still do run into that. I think it's less, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, like it's less frequent.
Less frequent, yeah. Especially that we've gained some intelligence.
Right.
So, and now, Paul, not to take away from, I know where you're going with this, I think, but Joff, tell me if you can, when you've talked about pen testing those systems, you talked about this abysmal state of what the generator or wherever was handed, and that they're locked into this. But tell me about the state of some of their compensating controls around some of that type of stuff. Yeah,
so very good point. The compensating control, the number one named compensating control in the example I can think of, is that the network was air-gapped. Yeah. So subsequently, during my test on site, in this one example, it was determined that the air gap was one employee unplugging an Ethernet cable after hours so that the wireless network could not talk to the SCADA network. That was the air gap.
Because air gap
so,
is never
so,
air
so
gap.
in other words, the compensating controls were nil.
Yeah, the compensating controls were nil, and we're talking about Windows XP as industrial controllers pre-SP1.
Okay.
That's interesting because we have a story about XP. And I don't necessarily agree with this headline. It says it's too unstable to spread WannaCry. Now, when you dig into it, you laugh, and I laugh at the headline. But when
I might disagree, but all right.
dig into it, it was really, when you read it, as it was reported originally by not the Register or some other news site, is what's quoted in here. It basically says that it wasn't the exploit that was crashing it. It was the payload, double pulsar, that was crashing it.
Oh, God.
And while that's funny in and of itself, you can probably tune the payload so that it does not crash Windows XP. However, the exploit could potentially remain pretty I can see that happening. I'm not saying that's exactly the case. I mean, I would have to test it myself to verify that. If anyone has, please write into the show.
Now that said, the
exploit and payload are two different things.
Oh, yeah,
obviously, right?
Yeah.
So
Metasploit taught us that.
Well, yeah,
and my argument would be, what would be the motivation in tuning the payload to actually affect Windows XP given the market share?
Oh, yeah.
Now, given the market share, you have to think about this carefully. Where is XP being used, and what is the value of those systems?
Targets.
Those are great targets because if they're running XP, they're probably at something that's very valuable.
I think we just said
I see a SCADA.
Industrial control systems.
Versus what's the market share? Do you really want to spend the time to do that? And some of the previous comments that we've had about WannaCry is that it appears that WannaCry was less about the financial motivation than it was about some other stuff.
Making a splash.
So,
well, and as previous guests have said on the show too, larger organizations, enterprises, and governments pay Microsoft extra money to get fixes.
So there's a back and forth about whether or not that's worth it to them to make that happen. So, but still really interesting.
It said Windows XP with Service Pack 2, there was no infection. Service Pack 3, random blue screens of death. Windows 7, infected after multiple attempts. In Windows 2008, Service Pack 1 could not replicate infection, but reported exploited.
So why didn't we bring this up when we were talking about the problems of small businesses? Because small businesses are still using XP in various places, and obviously large industrial control systems are still relying on XP. Why are we still talking about XP?
Why are they still using XP?
Anyone?
Because they don't have a technology guy to come in and upgrade
with
them.
a lot of with a lot of small businesses, they upgrade operating systems when they replace their computer. So, my laptop is finally 6 years old and the hinges are broken and we go and buy a new one. So that's kind of when they upgrade and they have these older OSs. It's just how they run.
Longer than that, we might be talking decade for some places. And in the case of the industrial control systems, sometimes they cannot get out of it. They've got software with a manufacturer. And I say manufacturer deliberately, a manufacturer that has got a mindset that they were built this software for 20 years. So, the dependencies they cannot get away from. I mean, it's like this is built to run on this kernel.
And you're bringing up something that I've been thinking about the last couple of weeks, which I think it's a philosophical issue. It's a generational issue, but my parents grew up in the Depression, and for the most part, when you invested in something, think IoT devices these days, when you bought a dishwasher, when you bought a refrigerator, you wanted to buy something that was going to last for 20 years.
Yeah,
that's a good point,
Jeff. There's this cultural mindset that I think is partially generational, but to some degree, I'm still leaning towards that end of the spectrum. But when I buy something, I want it to last for a long time. I don't want to have to update it every year.
Yep.
I think one of the most
like my grandfather when he my grandfather, long since passed. When he bought his truck, he wanted that thing to last forever. I mean, he literally drove that for my entire life that I knew my grandfather
drive every car into the ground.
He drove
literally
he
falling
drove,
apart,
he
driving in to trade it in,
and,
right?
and like it would rust over the wheel wells. So what did he would do? He would go out and cut that section with the sawzall out, and he would pop rivet a new piece of either aluminum or steel over that thing, and then paint it
explains a lot about your personality today, Larry, about where you came from.
It does. So much. So much.
How old is the underwear you're wearing? I mean, think about it.
I haven't worn any underwear in almost 20 years.
Assuming you wear it.
Wow, that is way too much information.
Because you know what? Why spend money on underwear? It's just going to fall apart.
You realize that we're oftentimes not the reincarnation of our parents, but our grandparents.
Sometimes.
But my point is, though, somewhere along the line, the whole advancement in technology is, technology vendors, not just security vendors, have tried to create this sensation of we've got to update, we got to get something new. I mean, I think it started with mobile devices and phones, but nowadays people are conditioned to, my phone's a year old, I got to get a new one. Not so much with laptops, but we can wish for new laptops or tablets or whatever, but
you're saying it's our fault.
But I think it comes down. Well, I
think it's something we don't talk about or acknowledge enough. That I don't think there's anything wrong with the mindset of buying something that lasts for 20 years.
But there's also the pain point of rip and replace, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's two aspects of it, right? There's a pain point of rip and replace, and I think when you want to buy something that lasts, you want to minimize the cost that it is to rip and replace, and only have to do that when you absolutely need to. But there's also, we need to not think about, like, when we buy something, how long it's going to last. Today, when we buy something, we have to think about, okay, if it's going to last me this long, how long am I going to get updates for it? And how painful is it going to be to apply those updates? Can I apply updates for that time? Because so much of what we have today is software-based or firmware-based and can be updated. When we bought a dishwasher or any home appliance 20 or 30 years ago, none of that stuff was updated.
To go back to what Don was saying, you're describing an awareness that's not out there.
Correct. You're correct.
Where you go out and apply training, like knowing how to apply a patch or knowing how to turn on the update feature.
Well, no, it goes even further than that, though. There's a culture collision. I mean, you look at the SCADA situation, and in the days where you hooked these control systems up with serial cables, RS-232 or whatever, the ramifications of doing that were not nearly as serious as the ramifications of plugging an Ethernet cable in it, and people,
or a wireless network now,
right? And so that culture, the industrial control system culture, does not know. They just flat do not know the ramifications of doing what they're doing. Maybe with the exception of a subset, just a few. And apologies to anybody who's like yelling at me right now, but that is the real core of the issue, right? Air gapping is not necessarily a bad thing, but they just don't realize the ramifications of, we'll just plug it into our wireless network in the example that I talked about.
I think part of the problem is, and it ties into one of our other stories here and personal experience that I have with a product, is that when you purchase a product, it's impossible to know how resilient that product is going to be over a period of time.
Yep.
You really don't know. I mean, you may know how long you're going to use it for, but if it's something that you know you're going to need for a long time, years, right? You don't know how resilient that product's going to be over time. So I purchased several years ago, maybe, a long time ago, a Ready-Nice NV Plus, right? And I've talked about this device on the show before.
Yeah.
And it's a network-connected storage. It's a NAS device from Netgear. And when we were talking last week about the SMB vulnerability, the Samba vulnerability, rather, I was like, it's a Spark processor. Oh, God. I'm like, good luck developing a payload for it. I mean, you could, sure. Like, you're...
Again, we go back to that Windows XP. Why would you develop
an exploit for it?
Yep.
And Lo and behold, to my amazement, Netgear actually has an update for it that patches the vulnerability. On Spark, particular that device with that firmware on Spark architecture.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know that, I don't know, 8 or 9 years later after I bought the device that I'd have to worry about applying patches and whether patches were going to be available or not. Like, it sits on my network and it serves files. Like, that's its purpose. It still does that to this day, whether it's vulnerable or not.
Yep.
And there's been all kinds of different vulnerabilities. It's been Nessa scanned, 8,000 times, over its lifetime, and identified vulnerabilities. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a vulnerability, but it's Spark, so good luck getting a payload. And I've applied updates to it until the core updates start, but here's a major security vulnerability. Now, the crossroads that I'm at, which makes this conversation very interesting, the crossroads I'm at now is this device is working in my network today. It's old.
Yep.
I feel like it's somewhat fragile, but it's working.
Yep.
Do I take now new software and apply it to this device, which could potentially break it, which then this device is that hasn't been supported in a long time? Like, what do? Do I potentially buy
a new one,
a patch, right? Or do I buy a new one, right? And why would I buy a new one when the existing one it runs fine?
And what would your grandpa say?
I want to throw this to Don what would the small business do, Don?
Yeah, because this is a small business product. I think Larry's going to.
So we're tech guys, and our tech problems are small business problems.
Yeah.
Well, and we're not touching on one important thing. You're lucky, Paul, that the vendor is still in business.
Right.
Yes. Put out
correct. You're correct, Jeff. You're correct.
Right. Shut up and let Don talk.
Yeah. Okay. I think in an enterprise you can be proactive, right? You have budgets, you have plans. When you select hardware to purchase, you have a development or deployment life cycle. Yep. You have that going on. In a small business, you're not proactive. You're reactive, right? You're putting out fires. So they buy that storage appliance and they run it until it's dead. That's how it is. And firmware updates.
Storage
appliances. It's like my first car.
As it turns out, those storage appliances are really resilient, Don, to your point. Like, when the thing flashes that it's got a bad drive, I go buy one on Amazon for like $50 and I swap a new one in and it runs.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but I know, I have one personally that you can tell the company threw together the easiest version of Linux they could to get on there, and all its logs are in Chinese, so you can't troubleshoot the damn thing.
Wonderful.
And for home, who cares, right? But for enterprise, for a business, that's not something that would ever fly. But for a small business, they're typically taking consumer technology, stuff they get at Best Buy, and deploying that in their business.
Yep.
And cell phones are a big problem with this too, because even enterprises, you get screwed there. Like, if a cell phone is not a successfully sold one, it's not going to be supported for any long window of time. But even Google with their Pixels, didn't they say they were going to cut that one just a hair after 2 years? So that's the kind of window we're looking at with technology these days.
But that's a good point, because I think Google knows that their market for Pixel are people like me that are technology savvy and update their phones regularly anyway. I think Google has an interesting market position.
Yeah.
That, to your point, Don, it's a very good point, because while Google markets their Pixel towards very technology savvy people, they know they can have a short life cycle, because that audience, that target market, is going to upgrade their phones. In other words, when I know as a Pixel user that Google's dropping support, even if it's 2 years, I never keep a phone for more than 2 years, a year at most, and I'm upgrading to the next thing. So, but when we look at the small business, the technology that's available to them, they're purchasing it not as a Google Pixel target market user. They're purchasing it, as you said, a small business user that's like, hey, I'm going to get this device. I'm going to use it for as long as I can to get the maximum value from my purchase. However,
this laptop right here,
the seller of that Chinese-based network-attached storage appliance is like, well, we just want to crank out devices as cheaply as possible. And if we come up with a new version that, hey, we're going to change the processor architecture, less than a year after we brought this first one to market because we saved $3 per device, we're going to do that. And we're not going to support the previous one because it costs us too much money to support the previous one. Now those other users are screwed, and that target audience is one that wants to use that device for a really long time. Yep. I think that's largely why we're in the situation we are today with small businesses in these purchasing decisions. So I think it's a fantastic point that everyone brought up.
Sweet.
Okay, transition to another story.
Another story. So, Paul, I had out of my 4, I put some really good ones in there. Out of those 4,
do that. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
I'd love to do
I'll be
3.
right back. So,
yes,
thanks.
You got to pee. Got to pee.
Paul is leaving the show.
Yeah, Paul's got to pee. So the first story I had in there was from one of our sponsors, and it was one of those requests that this was literally a story I was reading as we were on the show last week. Like the last 15 minutes of the show, I was reading the story as it was coming out, and it's the Operation Cobalt Kitty. The large-scale APT in Asia carried out by the Ocean Lotus Group. And it was very interesting stuff. So this was, in fact, an analysis of the Cobalt Kitty operation by Cybereason, who, in full disclosure, is a sponsor. I've put the request, and I've seen the request go out to Cybereason to talk to the folks that actually were involved in this analysis of the Ocean Lotus Group Operation Cobalt Kitty. And quite honestly, for me as a red teamer, it's absolutely fantastic. In that,
Larry,
yes.
just a quick question.
Yeah.
The Cobalt reference.
Oh yeah,
is that a reference to Cobalt Strike?
Yes, it is. I would argue that it is, given that some of the command and control that was used in this specific attack was Cobalt Strike.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was my question when I was reading this. We were talking about this, and I said, "Well, doesn't Raphael Mudge vet who he sells Cobalt Strike to?" And because based on my interaction with him, it was, "Hey, who do you work for? You know, all this stuff. Oh yeah, great. I know you guys. You're good. Everything's good." But there are so many operations where potentially somebody else could have been compromised and license keys could have been acquired.
Right.
You talk about some of the stuff. Cobalt Strike was involved. The analysis of some of the traffic that were there for some Cobalt Strike beacon stuff was interesting. The fact that where was it? Cobalt Kitty operators from the name is escaping.
Did you say Cobalt Kitty?
Yeah,
operator?
I did Cobalt Kitty.
So these are people that acquire Cobalt Strike and use it for
amongst others. And this is the analysis from Cybereason folks that I want them to come on and talk about.
Oh, okay. You mentioned that. Yeah. They're a sponsor, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some of the stuff is that the folks that were using Cobalt Strike didn't understand how some of the functionality actually worked, which helped them
hence the moniker Script Kitty.
Yep, exactly. So I thought this was a fantastic analysis, and I don't want to blow the wad, so to speak, for the Cybereason folks, assuming we can get them on, because
we can.
This was absolutely amazing, some of the stuff that they did, and I have questions for them about what they did and how they did it. Coming from the defender side, because I'm very much we very much do red team, and this is some of the stuff they did, and want to talk to them about this whole analysis. So this was some awesome stuff.
Absolutely. Hey, Paul, you think we can get them on somewhere in the next couple of weeks?
We have the request in.
Yeah,
I know. I saw it from Sam
absolutely.
Today.
Fantastic.
Great bunch of folks at Cybereason. Yeah, no, that's Israel Barak, who's been on the show multiple times on Pulse Security Weekly and on other shows. It works at Cybereason. So,
so another quick one, Paul. I know you were just coming back from taking a dump. No, you just peeing.
I had to go pee. I have like the world's smallest bladder.
I've got 2 self-serving posts here. One of them from InGuardians. We just redid our entire website, but one of the first things...
Nginx and WordPress?
No, WordPress and Apache.
There you go.
Close. But
Emacs?
Jay Beale's got this awesome post that I got to help tech edit and stuff as it went out, and it's part 1 of some stuff that he's been doing, which is awesome. And it was very much WordPress. So we talked about WordPress earlier in the show. So one of the things that Jay has been doing is he's been pulling down a bunch of these sort of offline CTF type stuff. And one of the ones he pulled down was a CTF that is Mr. Robot themed. This one it deals with WordPress. And he started going through it, and he's like, I broke this, and I can think of some ways to defend against it. So he's literally taking these CTFs And he's taking the instruction about how to break the CTF, how to win the CTF, or how to go through the CTF. And then on the converse is, well, you just broke this. This is how you broke this. And these are the methods you'd use. How would I defend against that?
That's awesome.
And
That's
building
awesome.
building profiles on these
Yeah.
CTF images to defend against it. And this particular one is password spraying and password brute forcing against WordPress. And he builds an OSSec profile to do IP tables rules after failed login attempts for the WordPress admin.
Well, it's a very defendable problem with WordPress.
Right. Right.
Brute force logins.
But and this is not necessarily using a WordPress plugin.
It's
This
offloading
is
it
using
from WordPress.
This
yeah.
is using OSSec.
I like that because you take a performance hit when you do some of that stuff in
Absolutely.
WordPress. So
Absolutely. And this is eventually using IP tables rules to do denies.
I like that. I like that because that is a much better usage of system resources doing it in IP
Yes.
tables than WordPress. It's just lower in the stack.
Yes,
I like it. I like
absolutely, absolutely. And this is part one of a multi-part series, so there's some more of that.
Fantastic, dude.
Yep.
One of the many reasons why I love Jay is for his deep knowledge of Linux and Linux hardening. And along those lines, there was a very interesting, and I haven't processed all of the exact details. Have you guys seen the Sudo vulnerability?
So I read this and I immediately dismissed that this is, if you've got sudo access, you've got root access. What's the big deal? This is a fake news story.
Yeah.
And
Larry, that's what it was designed for, right?
yeah, exactly.
Sudo is. Anyway.
Well, no, I mean,
That's not necessarily true, right? Like
the larger
with Sudo,
Go ahead,
you can actually limit people to a particular set of commands, right?
Exactly.
That's what makes this risky is in those scenarios.
If they're aware that you can configure it like that.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, and you're right, Jeff, and Don both.
So please enlighten me.
Well, the intended usage of sudo that I think is a much better from a security perspective is I want to, like Don said, limit it to users that can execute specific commands. Largely, as Jeff pointed out, people use it to basically delineate between root user and non-root user, well, there's the actual root user.
It's a way to do things that you have to do as root without logging on to the root account,
Correct.
which you shouldn't do on a daily basis.
Right, which does offer
and
some protection.
And with varying level of access control.
Yes.
Yep.
So this
And logging.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is a user with sudo privileges can cause sudo to use a device number of the user's choosing by creating a symbolic link from the sudo binary to a name that contains a space followed by a number. Ooh. Still digging into the details exactly how that works. It's pretty cool.
A number like 0?
There are patches available for it. Red Hat and Debian, SUSE, as well as others have issued patches for it. So my recommendation would be to apply those patches.
Not use sudo. No, apply the patches.
No, apply those patches. Apply those patches.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, I think this was not like super critical because of the way most people use sudo. If you're using it just to give root access to somebody, then this is kind of really not a big deal.
Right.
But if you are using it in that use case scenario of I've given somebody access so that they can sudo a particular command, this would give them a chance to go beyond that command. That's where it's really critical this gets updated.
Yeah, I had a customer one time that was using sudo to su.
Yeah.
You can do it.
You can.
And it took me a long time to explain it to him why that was kind of not a
You know what's
why it was a
interesting
bad
though is that a lot of times sudo space su space minus is a better command than because it sets up the environment properly.
Yes.
And you tend to run into less issues.
Oh God.
Yes.
Setting the environment properly
is a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah,
I want to talk about OneLogin.
And after that, I do have one other story I would love to cover because you'll like this. You'll like this.
I want to make sure we hit. I want to hit OneLogin.
Yep.
I want to hit Oauth, and I want to hit Larry's story.
Yeah.
OneLogin. This is a
Yes.
And I want to hit Chipotle too. So we have 4 stories to talk about before we end. Jeff, that was your story that I want to get to as well. OneLogin. This is a really bad breach. I don't have all the details as to how and all that stuff. I do know that I am a LastPass user. I'm a former 1Password user. I've been skeptical of these password managers, skeptical of single sign-on applications for really this reason. As OneLogin sent an email to their customers that basically said bad things have happened, and here's what we need you to do. Generate new certificates for your apps that use SAML, SSO, generate new keys for legacy API and OAuth, generate new directory tokens, generate new SSO tokens and credentials. If you replicate your directory password to provision applications, force a password reset, recycle any secrets and secure notes, credentials for users provisioning into third-party applications, form-based login credentials, and radius shared secret. Basically, like redo everything in your OneLogin because there was a massive data breach. It could be the I don't know. It depends on the audience and the users of OneLogin. Very well could be like a company-changing, company-ending vulnerability when you are the company providing single sign-in type services like that, and you have this massive breach. You've completely depleted the trust with your user base and put yourself in a sticky situation. Very different, I think, from the LastPass vulnerabilities. They were very responsive. They were not nearly as devastating as this vulnerability. Glad that I used LastPass. I also put two-factor authentication on LastPass. In this case with OneLogin, I'm not sure if that mattered or not. And again, two-factor authentication isn't like magic pixie. Remember the magic pixie dust?
I do.
Yeah. It's not magic pixie dust for security. It does help, though. So this is really bad.
Right.
Has anyone else looked into this OneLogin thing? Like, it seems really bad to me.
The only thing I've got is the stories that were published, which is along the lines of what you just said, Paul. We've had a breach. It's U.S. centric. There's nothing else that I could see that had any more details. But the net result is for everybody out there: change everything. Change master passwords. Change all your passwords on every stored site. I mean, make sure that you update everything because this is serious.
Yeah, and OneLogin isn't like OneLogin is more single sign-on competing with Okta than it is a password vault. Don?
I did find it interesting. They mentioned like the secure notes feature where like maybe you've turned on multiple factor authentication and you have those recovery keys. So you stored them in a secure note that was secured by single sign or by OneLogin that you have to consider those compromised now. So in your recovery keys and in the case of 2FA or MFA, you're going to have to turn that off and turn it back on again to generate all new keys. And that causes a lot of problems in systems.
Oh, yeah.
Just all throughout. So that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Larry, what do you got for your story?
Oh, so the other one was this one you will actually find interesting because of the way it went down. The other one that I've got in there is Decoding DECT, digital enhanced cordless telephone with an RTL-SDR. This popped up in my feed, and I missed it for a couple of days.
This is DECT is baby monitors.
Baby monitors and a lot of headsets and cordless phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I challenge you.
We've talked about this on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Like way back in the day.
Well, so here's the deal. So the deal is that in order to deal with DECT and whether or not the calls are encrypted, you actually have to capture traffic and decode it and see if you can listen to it. And we did this with some demos with your baby monitors.
Yeah.
And we do this in the SAN 617 course all the time.
Right.
But it
and there's no FCC regulations that dictate the being able to capture this traffic?
Nope.
Okay.
It's specific.
It's an open. Is it an open spectrum?
It is. It is in ISM bands that don't require license and so forth.
Okay.
But it's in weird stuff. It's not 2.4 and 5.
It's weird. Yeah.
So it's and I don't remember. I think it's 1.8 to 1.92 depending on where you are on the planet, and which is ISM.
It's somewhere between 900 megahertz and 2.4.
Yeah, it's 1.8 to 1.92 depending on where you're.
Like I said, between 900 megahertz and 2.4.
You're right.
Right. Okay.
But it requires some very specialty hardware to analyze.
Yep.
And that hardware has become harder and harder to acquire, and we've talked about software-defined radio. Mm-hmm. And now this post says, hey, if you have an RTL-SDR, that $20 to $30 software-defined radio, you can potentially capture DECT traffic. And you can capture DECT traffic and dump it to PCAP. Now
So these are monitors, Larry, that like if I have a baby monitor on at home, they're essentially like listening devices.
They're always
in
on
my home.
They're
always on.
They're
right?
always on.
Yeah, okay.
Now, baby monitor, whatever, home.
Headset.
DECT, cordless telephone.
Yes.
You go to buy a cordless telephone, go to Staples. try to buy a cordless telephone. Tell me what type of technologies are available on the shelf. There are two. There are Bluetooth and there are DECT. And there's one Bluetooth and everything else is DECT.
Wait. There's one manufacturer that's producing a
No, they're just across the board.
Oh, like when you walk in the store.
The two technologies.
Yeah.
Now, you go to a call center and you say, your call center folks want a headset because talking on the phone, like crimping in the ear.
And they wouldn't use a wired headset because...
No, I don't know. Everybody wants the wireless stuff because it's cool. So what do? You go to the local like W. Mason catalog or whatever your vendor is, and what are the two types of headsets you've got?
Bluetooth and DECT.
Bluetooth and DECT. And which one's fucking cheaper?
DECT.
Bingo.
Yep.
Wow.
So now there was a barrier to entry to capturing DECT traffic. Your call center talks about lots of fun stuff. Now this gentleman has said, hey, we can capture DECT with a $20 to $30 software-defined radio.
There was a story that we covered, Larry.
Wait. I'm going to blow your mind. So they say you can capture DECT traffic with a software-defined radio that costs you between $20 and $30. It dumps it to PCAP. They say, well, great, we want the audio. Well, they said you can dump the audio by taking the B channel and dumping it to a file and then playing it back with this audio codec. Well, how did we find that out? Well, we went to this Reddit thread that said, hey, we went to Security Weekly episode 158, and they've got instructions on how to do so.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Boom!
I was going to say, hold on, Jeff. Back in that time, we covered a story, and I want to say it was from Pentest Monkey blog. You remember that guy?
I do.
And they told the story, and I believe it was 900 megahertz frequency that they were listening to.
We do.
They picked up on because the headsets of the call center and various employees were all 900 megahertz. They sat in the parking lot with
a scanner.
Basically for X number of days listening to their traffic, gleaned enough information from that traffic to essentially create an employee. So they then, like the next week, created an employee, business cards, the whole, and had an armed that employee with enough information about the company. That employee, that person from the Pentest company walked in. I'm a new employee. They set that person up with a desk. That person worked there for, I want to say, about a week. Attended birthday parties for employees.
Yeah. They sat at a desk. Yep.
Sat at a desk, plugged into the network, essentially worked there for an entire week. And that was, to me, one of the most compelling stories we've covered on this issue.
I will say, I tech edited a book for Singress. That was on exactly those subjects about doing
Wireshark?
Nope, not Wireshark.
Okay.
And it's crazy. I can't remember the name of the book, but I tech edited a book from. He was one of the guys at Secure State that has since moved on. Epic hipster beard, mustache. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy Bullock.
No, it wasn't Bo. Bo didn't work for Secure State, and I'm totally embarrassed that I can't remember the name. But I tech edited a book that was literally was basically using RF for pen testing, and it was very much these types of things that were RF outside of wireless.
Yeah.
And outside of the standard protocols that you'd think about, like how do you deal with like the security radios at 900 megahertz and all this crap.
It's great.
And
people don't pay, I mean, talk about things that enterprises don't pay attention to.
Yeah. Yep.
Certainly one of them.
I feel like we should do a demo. I think I've got a DECT cordless phone in the house.
Joff, it's coming. And it may be coming to a SANS course near you.
There you go.
Oh, baby.
No, that should totally be.
No, we should do, seriously, we should do a live demo where I pick up a DECT handset, make the call, and we should freaking show the packets and make it happen.
We will.
Yeah.
Count
Just
on
for
it.
you, Jeff.
Count on it. Episode 150.
We should produce an entire podcast that we did over a DECT frequency that we captured the traffic and then replayed it.
God.
And the sound quality would be awesome.
You're such a nerd.
So literally.
Riley is like literally cringing in his seat.
So the RTL-SDR.com blog, an RTL-SDR DECT decoder update over the Reddit thread from the original poster. In theory, you only need to dump the B field data into a file and then play with the G726 codec. see documentation from previous DECT projects.
Wait, does that link work? Please tell me that link doesn't
That link fucking works.
Okay, good. Yes, winning
From WikiSecureWeekly.com, episode 158, in which we talk about sniffing DECT for fun and penetration testing with Larry Pesci.
Oh, thank God that link works. That means I've done my job.
Which we talk about installing the DECT CLI stuff, and then the final caveat is a script for converting PCAP and dumping B field into a file, which we can play with the codec.
That's awesome. I'm so glad the link works.
Boom! I'm like, this is my crowning moment. Like, I took shit that somebody else did and put it with somebody's shit what somebody else did, and I tied it together
and documented it, and other people are winning from it. That's awesome. I want to talk about not winning with Oauth, and I haven't checked out the entire talk. There are slides posted about Oauth Nightmares, and
yes,
I want to use this as basically a talking point that I hate Oauth. Oauth is kind of like this.
I love and
you know what it is? It's the friggin' Sudo for web applications. Is what it is. That's exactly what it is when you think about it, and it frightens me to death. I hate the guys are like, well, we need to authorize like our internal application to like Twitter and Facebook, and it's all in Google, and it's all friggin' Oauth. And not only is the configuration a nightmare, after I configure it, like I feel dirty. Being a security professional and configuring like trust relationships with Oauth, I feel dirty. I'm like, this is bad. Something bad's gonna it's bad. My gut reaction is bad.
Bad.
That's my take on Oauth. It's bad. And quite frankly,
it's good, but it's bad.
But quite frankly, a lot of the abuses that we've talked about with social networks. In fact, there was a story last week or the week before that people were tweeting as someone else's Twitter account that was totally an Oauth abuse. And we've covered stories like that in the past where essentially people have lost control of their site. And again, this also speaks to how two-factor authentication doesn't fucking help you in this situation, because it's not about your password. It's about basically you've given someone permission with this magical token that says you can do shit with my account, and people just take that over.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very... Oauth does give me nightmares. It really does.
I think the real challenge there is it's complex, right? And if it's done improperly, you are really opening yourself up to a big risk. But if it's done properly, it's really powerful. It's a great secure solution.
Agreed. This again comes back to the whole, we've developed a secure solution. It's all about how you implement it.
Mm. Yes.
Yep.
Agreed. I mean, because you can very easily lose your... Like, how do you protect those client secrets and OAuth IDs, right?
Right.
Because when
you put those in a world readable directory, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
And then you put them on an SVN repository and you stick them up on your production web server, and that's a perfect place.
But, Geoff, that's a fantastic point. I think there's an entire tech segment, or maybe 5, that talks about how you
don't
back up your code or your configuration files.
Oh my God, yes.
Without exposing that level of information, because there are a lot of, just in the small subset of systems that we have today, I do local system file versioning, and I'm like, I really need to get like a Git or SVN repository and store this stuff somewhere. But I'm like, if I'm automatically backing up my config files and doing versioning on them, if that ever becomes public, it's essentially like handing over the keys to the kingdom, because inside these config files, there could be passwords, there could be
AWS keys,
OAuth tokens, and there's the token ID, but then there's the secret passphrase that gives that application access. It's almost like in a Windows environment, you have system-level accounts.
Paul, I've had pen tests where I have had an SVN repository that has been uploaded to a server. It has been, they thought anyway, sanitized by removing the files from the repository, but you can reconstruct the original source from the hashes. Okay, and there's documentation on there. It's actually, I think, a Security Weekly post where there's documentation on this.
Yep.
And I've actually retrieved an Amazon API key, which I have then used directly against the entity that I was testing to access their entire file system.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So, Joff, same thing. I developed because I wanted to show down with Ed. Ed's got his Morse code tweeting bot at home that I wanted to do the same, but I wanted to do them one up, and I wanted to display the user's avatar and a LED panel when it was doing the Morse code of the tweet to me and so forth and so on. And the code that I had required a Twitter OAuth token. Yep. And when I published the code, I published it as, insert your own token here. So I didn't fuck that up, believe it or not.
Yeah, nice. No, you'd be surprised. Developers actually inadvertently include their tokens actually in the freaking source
in the code.
Yeah,
Joff, I ran into a situation last week where I went into the configuration file for the application. I updated the OAuth tokens and secrets, and then it wasn't working. And I'm like, knowing this, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I bet you it's hard-coded in the code. I dug through the code, and I'm like, oh, look,
sure enough,
they're not even reading the configuration file. They've just included it in the code. And, I had this, forehead moment. I'm like,
face palm.
I'm like, it's so bad because then this code, configuration files in your build scripts and stuff, right? You're going to know that there's stuff in there that you want to take out, and not just for security, but because development, QA, and production might have a different set of credentials for OAuth. In other words, in development, I'm doing OAuth to a different account, and in production, I'm doing OAuth to a different account. But your code, that just goes, and it's very scary. OAuth is very scary.
Yep.
It's kind of like encryption, Jeff. You're laughing, right? But it's kind of like encryption. Encryption's great, but it's all about the implementation, and I think that's where the vulnerabilities are in OAuth is in the implementation.
Yes, I can agree with that.
All right. Was there something else we wanted to talk? Oh, Jeff, we need to talk about Chipotle really quick.
Yeah. Thanks for saving so much time for it.
Sorry.
Well, there have been a couple breaches announced recently, Chipotle and Kmart as well. And Kmart, it's like their second time in 3 years. It's still
wait.
malware.
Kmart's still in business?
Yep. It's also in the notes.
Yeah, wow. It is.
Point of sale malware. We probably should have talked about this when we were talking about XP.
Don. Well,
but
definitely
the point I want to make is one of the articles I posted was like a local radio, TV station for that wanted to do a story on the Chipotle breach, and the title of the article was something about time to update to the chip cards. And even looking at Krebs's article on the Kmart, the very first comment is, "Wow, glad I use a chip card all the time." People, the mag stripe data that's on a credit card is almost entirely the same data that's on the chip, and it's not encrypted on the chip. The authorization, the security code is what's different about the chip, preventing, in theory, the card from being cloned and used to commit fraud. You can still capture all the same data, even with point-of-sale malware, and you can still use that data to commit fraud on a website that's not asking for the security code. Yeah. And people don't seem to get that. So I just wanted to hammer that home.
Chip and signature is useless because now if I capture your card via magstripe, I can change the magstripe to say, there's no chip in this card. You'll use the magstripe.
Yep.
And
it's a little bit trickier, but you can force that.
No, it's not tricky at all. It's not. If you can swipe it, it's fairly easy documented to know which the value is to set 1 or 0 to say this is chip enabled or not chip enabled. And now I just use the magstripe and done.
So ridiculous. Why didn't we go chip and pin? It's like
where's Jack when you need him?
Where's Jack?
Well, one of the real issues is that things have been delayed, and not to point fingers at any vertical in the industry, but I was having a conversation earlier today with some other people. The fuel industry, you notice if you go fill your car with gas, you're not doing a chip yet. because
Right.
I don't think it's technically possible to replace the card readers, the point of interaction devices in a pump without replacing the whole pump. So that's a huge.
Is that true? Is that really
that's
true? Is that really true?
Fucking lies.
I think it's true, but I'm not.
Because hold on. Jeff has a point though. If you think about when you go to the gas pump, there is only a magstripe reader inside.
Yeah.
Physically, there is only a magstripe reader. There is no.
Let's put it this way: every other store that I've been to has only had a magstripe reader, and now they have magstripe and PIN.
Because they can replace that, but Larry, they can replace that whole physical device.
Yeah,
but when it's inside of a gas pump,
they're modular.
Yeah, but you have to retrofit the module to have a chip reader and a stripe reader.
Yeah, it's modular. You put it in and you leave it there, or you put it in and you swipe.
It depends on the vendor. It depends on the vendor. Jeff's partially correct. Some cases, he's absolutely right. You cannot replace the reader without replacing the pump.
It's inside of another device.
You do not have to replace the entire pump. You have to retrofit the existing pump,
the module, but that's a lot more
in the modular portion.
But that's a lot more expensive.
But
no,
that modular
no, it is because
the pump part is the expensive part.
Yeah, but there's more pumps than there are registers.
Right, but so you think about it, you pull up to the pump. There's the part that dispenses the gas, and there's all this crap, and then there's this small part that does the processing and talks to the.
Do you think they designed them though so they could fit a chip reader and a magstripe?
Oh, you got to replace the whole front panel part that does that, and there's some challenges, but it is modular.
I disagree, Larry, because we're talking about the point of introduction device. We're not talking about point of sale. The point of sale is usually in a controller that's either in the kiosk or it's inside if it's a convenience store or whatever. And it's tied to the fuel delivery system. So it's software that's all combined together. I don't think it's as modular as you think it is.
I would argue that the point of delivery device is very similar to the point of sale device in that you literally do not have to rip the gas station apart to replace the entire pump with the handle and all this stuff. There is some portion that you have to replace, but you don't have to replace this entire thing that goes floor to ceiling. It's modular from this device that says dispense gas. Gas comes out of this hose. You don't have to replace the gas comes out of this hose part. You have to replace here's the part where I interface with the station attendant and the card versus replacing this whole $10,000 device. You have to replace this $2,000 device.
It's still a lot more work. It's still a lot more work, time, and money to
fit in the pump, and it's got to talk to the software that's running the $10,000.
It's more expensive to do that than it is to replace something at the register.
Absolutely. Okay. The option is you replace something at the register. Now everybody has to come inside, and that sucks. And
that's not going to work for gas stations.
No. And agreed. You can choose.
And again, I'm not trying to pick on the fuel industry.
Oh no,
that's
not at all.
One example.
I don't know. I will pick on the fuel
industry. Has got a 2 or 3 more years before they have to implement chip. They're going to do it.
And Jeff,
they've been allowed.
But I
totally
think they're using that 2 or 3 years to move people towards an app that's specific to that organization and that company, or a card that's specific to so you can get like Cumberland Farms, you can get their app.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have their app because I hate installing per merchant apps on my phone when there's like Apple Pay, Android Pay. Right, that's a whole other conversation, right? But they could conceivably say, well, we're just going to leave magstripe readers and we're going to have a wireless reader in there.
And I hate to say this. Think about backwards compatibility. Someone like my mom, who just turned 74 years old. Smartphone.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah, smartphone literally doesn't exist.
Yeah.
She has a jitterbug that makes phone calls. She can't go up to a pump and go bing and pay. She needs to have a card, or she needs to go inside and pay with cash or check.
Hey, if there was a gas station that accepted Android Pay,
you'd be all over that shit.
That's totally fine. Android Pay is already configured on my phone. Done. Yep. Of course, there was that whole thing about having your cell phone activated.
There's that.
There's a Mythbusters episode. All right.
It's more technology that they have to put in the pump, and
with
costs
that,
money.
we're going to conclude this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you from Don from IT Pro for guest hosting as well as all of our regular hosts. Larry, take us out.
Over. And bourbon.